This could be the biggest day of Arsenal's entire season. It could be. It might not be. But we kind of hope that it is. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. Incredibly appreciated. Thank you as always for supporting the channel, for tuning in live, and for those listening on catch up, we welcome you as well. Thank you so much for making the time this morning. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Paul, Rich, Martin, Glenn, Shari, Martin, Paul. That was interesting, wasn't it? I feel like it was like what is it where it's like a word that works in both directions? Is it palindrome? It's not the same like four names back and forward. Matt G, Barry, Damien, Paul, Amesy, Tabani, Paul, Lee, Stephen, other Stephen, Rowan. Thank you so much as always to you all for tuning in, and everybody else, of course, that's tuning in the chat box as well, that I can't get to everybody. So, yes, thank you. As Adagoke here says, though, please don't forget to smash the like button if you want Spurs to hit Man City tonight. Of course, we are reliant upon Tottenham to get a result tonight as the first of two remaining opportunities for Arsenal to get their hands on the title. It's strange. It's weird. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't, be hoping that Tottenham win or get a result this evening. It doesn't make you any less of an Arsenal fan in any way, shape or form. It's a very simple way to look at things. Your love of Arsenal should certainly be outweighing your hatred towards Tottenham. And for that reason, we should be hoping that they get a result tonight, because a result tonight for Tottenham helps Arsenal. It's as simple as that. So I know that you're going to get some odd people out there telling you otherwise, but please don't let them get to you. It doesn't need to. Arsenal, for sure, are the main team that in your minds. And, of course, for Tottenham to get a result tonight would be the biggest thing for Arsenal. It's a very simple way to think about it. So, yeah, I really don't get it. I really don't get it. Munaf says, why are some Arsenal fans letting off fireworks in the area where the City squad are staying over? Keeping them awake, I guess. Just the tactics. It's dirty tactics. It's not great. But there you go. David Simmons says, hey Tom, this is my first live show. Today's my birthday, and yes, I share the name with the legendary goalkeeper David Seaman. So thank you, David, for joining us, and happy birthday, mate. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Do drop a like on the video, help us to 1K every single day. That is our daily target, so please make sure that you help us out on that front. Let's jump into today's stories though, shall we? And we start with some sad news. Viv Miedema will be leaving the club after 7 years with us. Real shame, real amazing achievement what Miedema has obviously achieved with Arsenal during the 7 years that she's spent with the club. She won the WSL in 2018-19, and she won the WSL Cup / the Women's League Cup in 17-18, 22-23, and 23-24, and was a runner-up in the Women's FA Cup in 2017-18 and 2021. Could have won more, should have won more. I think this Arsenal team has deserved to win more as well. Where she goes next, we're not 100% sure, I don't think, where she might end up moving to. She joined Arsenal, of course, back in 2017 from Bayern Munich, where she'd already won 2 Bundesliga titles. So, it's a real shame. And, of all the people, of course, I think this affects most. It'll be interesting to see. Not interesting, but it's just sad for Beth Mead, of course, who's losing a family member from her club as well. So, yeah, let's wish Viv all the best and hope that she succeeds wherever she goes, because she's given us plenty. Meanwhile, and moving into the Premier League, Villa, but they did draw 3-3 with Liverpool last night, which of course gives something of an incentive to Tottenham this evening. The Premier League table means, of course, that if Spurs were to beat Manchester City tonight, they would move within just 2 points of Aston Villa and 4th place. It means that on the final day of the season, when Aston Villa play against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, Tottenham will be away against Sheffield United. It's a very obvious answer as to what is the most was the easier of the two fixtures. So Tottenham have an incentive tonight. Of course, it would have been more helpful, I think, had Liverpool got a win, but not really. The goal difference has very much leaned in Aston Villa's favour. So, yeah, I don't think that was by any means any more helpful. It just means that, of course, Aston Villa could perhaps draw at Crystal Palace. And even if Sheffield United do still lose to Spurs, they would get top four. At the end of the day, I'd rather Aston Villa got top four. We want Aston Villa to be in fourth place, not Spurs. But tonight, we are hoping that Tottenham get a result because we need that for Arsenal. There's almost an irony, isn't there, that there's some... I think there's an irony in that not wanting Arsenal to get some help from Tottenham is almost anti-Arsenal. It kind of goes against the nature of what a supporter is. So if you want to be that way inclined, feel free. But I'm going to lean into my Arsenal supporting kind of just the behaviours and just what is the right thing to do and hope that Manchester City drop points tonight. Guardiola, though, has already embarked upon a fair few mind games. He was asked about the money that's been spent and started to go on this weird tangent around the Premier League being boring before it was money and that being kind of leveled at him. And he says, if that was the reason, United should win all the titles, then Chelsea, then Arsenal. They've spent more money in the last 5 to 6 years than Man City. They should be there. And that's the thing, is that whilst I think there's certainly an argument to bring up Chelsea and Manchester United, to be fair to Chelsea, they have won a title in the last however many of those years. And they, of course, have won... they've won a title, was it in 2017? And they've won a Champions League as well recently in those 5 to 6 years also. But to bring Arsenal in is a bit strange. And to be honest, what Guardiola is very clever at doing, and he knows what he's doing as well with these types of comments, is it completely ignores all the money that was spent by City to give them the foundations to win. Bear in mind, of course, that Guardiola has been at City longer than that period of time. He's been there since 2017. 2017. He's been since at Manchester City. So he's not counting the first 2 years of his management where they spent huge sums of money as well, which were far more than any of those other clubs were spending even at that time also. He's just being very selective about what he's saying. Should clubs like Man United and Chelsea be more competitive by now? Absolutely they should. But it's still a little bit of a strange kind of position to put yourself in, to ignore so much of the spending that Man City have already done at that level, which is plenty. So there is no argument that that City shouldn't be winning the league every single year, because across the amount of time that Pep's been manager of the club, I don't think any club other than City has spent more money, perhaps than maybe Chelsea after recent seasons. But City spending is still rather ridiculous, and the foundation, of course, that was there when he joined was already there. I mean, when you've got someone, when you're inheriting a player like Kevin De Bruyne, for instance, you know exactly how much money has already been spent at the time that you've been appointed as manager. Last story to touch upon before we go to part two and your questions is one that I think is going to raise some eyebrows amongst the Arsenal fan base, and that is the expectation that Reuell Walters will be leaving the club this summer. Art de Roche of The Athletic reporting yesterday that Walters has rejected a contract offer made by the club and is expected to leave in the summer. He wants more regular first-team football, and who can blame the guy? He's at an important age of his career now where he needs to be playing more senior football and needs to take that next step. And that next step is not going to be with Arsenal, because there just simply is not a pathway for Walters to get into the Arsenal first team. When he played in those games, I think it was against Nuremberg, he really did show some promise and show some potential there. I don't think he's come on enough to suggest that he should have been getting minutes. At no point can anyone sit here and say, oh, well, this is the game where he should have been playing, or this is the game where he should have been playing. There has not been the opportunity to give Reuell Walters, for instance, that real opportunity in a game to play and to suggest that that would change anything about his future. And I don't think that there's any way that we could have justified giving him any minutes in the last couple of years to change his mind, because what, are you going to drop Ben White? Are you going to drop Saliba? Are you going to drop Gabriel? Are you going to drop Kivior? Drop Zinchenko? Wonton Soup says we should have loaned him. I mean, who's to say that we didn't try? Who's to say that that option wasn't there? Who's to say that there didn't appear to be options to loan him? So we don't know is the reality of it as well. So there are said to be a lot of interest from clubs in the Premier League, Germany, Spain as well, following Walters as options for his future. We'll keep you up to date with any of these, with any of that comes between now and the end, of course, of the summer. Right, let's go to part 2, though, and your questions right after this. Okay, jumping into the chat box then to tackle some of your thoughts about our stories and anything new, of course, as well. Ian says, who cares about spending if you cannot bring them to a title-winning machine? Man City's structural supremacy means after Pep leaves, they might still win more titles, unlike a club like Manchester United. Of course, City have got a huge foundation, and the City Football Group as well gives them that massive boost as well. Matthew says, if this was the Spurs side in the form they were earlier in the season, or at least didn't have significant injuries, I would be more encouraged about putting up a fight. Yeah, I'm not encouraged or, in any way confident about tonight's game or the hope that Tottenham might do Arsenal a favour. I don't think that they will. I think that they will ultimately lose quite badly. I don't have any expectations, but that doesn't mean I can't stop holding out hope that the result goes Arsenal's way. Lee says, Tom, anything can happen tonight. A sending off, a deflection, City not making it to the game, a chef that's a Gooner cooking their pre-match meal. Keep the faith. A reverse lasagna gate, even. Nuances of Fate says, Arteta never stepping anyone up from the academy. I mean, that's just a lie. I always enjoy when the absolutes come out that are just wrong. Arteta never stepping anyone up from the academy. I mean, this season, of course, we've seen Ethan Nwaneri get the opportunity to play. During his time, we've given senior debuts to youngsters like Folarin Balogun, Ben Cottrell. This season, we gave an opportunity in the League Cup to Charles Sago Jr., who started the game against Brentford. Carl Hein has been given an opportunity as well. Miguel Aziz was given a senior debut also. So saying that never stepping anyone up from the academy is just not true. It's just a lie. It's just wrong. Is it arguable that he should have given more opportunities? There we can definitely have a discussion. But a suggestion that he never gives an opportunity is just simply not true. Jurassic Jai says, hey, Tom, been a Gooner for 21 years. I was called a fake fan by fellow YouTubers and Redditors. I salute you for your statement that our love for Arsenal should outweigh our hatred of Spurs. Yeah, don't let them get to you, mate. I mean, the only losers that are around are those that don't want Arsenal to win the title. And those are the fans that, of course, are hoping that Spurs lose tonight. It's a really backwards way of thinking from an Arsenal fan perspective. So trust me, you're far more of a fan than they ever will be, Jai. So don't you worry about that. Wonton Soup says, we didn't seem to have issues loaning other players. We need to make sure the likes of Nwaneri gets loaned if their players are. Of course, but there are opportunities and sometimes there aren't. And the club have to do the best thing they think for the player. If a loan opportunity comes through that they don't think is the right opportunity for the player, or there simply isn't any interest, they aren't going to go through it. Just because we've loaned other players does not mean that ultimately we are going to be able to loan every player. You've also got to have an under-21s team. It's worth pointing that fact out. I saw someone leave a comment the other day saying Mehmet Ali needs to be sacked. Mehmet Ali has not done a good enough job. And the irony of that statement is, of course, that if Mehmet Ali had all the players that would be eligible to play for the under-21s, we would probably win the league every single year. But the fact of the matter is that Arsenal do produce some fantastic young players that are already in the first team. And not only that, of course, but we've got players that are out on loan, getting some valuable experience because they need to. But you also need to have a foundation of youth players to play in the youth academy at a competitive level to allow them better consistency, to allow them to learn the Arsenal way. That's also something that's really important that's not talked about enough, is that the Arsenal Youth Academy and the Arsenal Youth System, every level from under 21s to under 18s, under 16s, under 14s, every single team in that level is designed to teach Arsenal's youngsters the Arsenal way. You're not going to do that if you go to Portsmouth or if you go to Accrington Stanley or if you go to Swansea. You're not going to learn the Arsenal way. And that's something that's never really talked about, is the fact that these youngsters learning the Arsenal philosophy, the Arsenal culture, because they play the same style as the first team. That's the idea, is they want to trickle down, if you like, the philosophy through the youth sides. So if you remove all of those young players from the under-21s team every single season, ultimately they're not going to learn that, so that when they do get to a level where we deem them good enough to make that step up, they're not going to be in the right place potentially to do that. Now, sometimes it means a player like Reuell Walters, even though he's been able to, play in the under-21s regularly, hasn't necessarily gone on loan. and probably knows the way to play the Arsenal way. He's just not off the required level at his age. He's not developed enough for the club for believing that he will be good enough to make that step up. And for those that think we should have given them more opportunities at senior level, I think there's an argument. There are sometimes games where that's certainly the case. There are sometimes opportunities that we've not necessarily taken them. I look at the Wolves game at the end of last season. I look at halftime against Lens in the Champions League, and I think you've got an argument there. But the same people that moan about the fact we don't give them opportunities, the same people that would moan if we dropped points in key games or got eliminated from cups. I mean, the amount of times I hear people say, why don't we take the cup seriously? We keep getting knocked out of the League Cup. We keep getting knocked out of the FA Cup. And at the same time, you're the people wanting us to play more kids in these tournaments, but you want us to take them more seriously. You can't have it all. You can't. And it's as simple as that. So you need to find the balance. Are we perfect at that? No. Can we improve? Yes. Are people too scrutinizing of the youth side of things? Absolutely. Z, thank you so much for the kind donation as well. Tom, just in case we win the title, how does the parade work? Where, what time, and how long? I'm in London and I'm prepared. The parade is taking place on Monday, the 20th, if indeed Arsenal do win the league. It will take place from 5 p.m. UK time and finish, I believe, at 8 p.m. It goes from the Emirates down to Islington Town Hall and then back up to the Emirates for 7, where there'll be another hour of kind of players doing speeches and stuff. So between 5 and 8 on Monday in Islington is where the parade will be, if indeed Arsenal are successful. And please don't give me all that bollocks about, don't talk about the parade. We haven't won it yet. It's logistics. It's news. It's part and parcel of what we need to talk about because it needs to be planned. Mick says, I'm still believing. You all should too. Come on, you Gooners. Absolutely, mate. Pratika says, I want Spurs to beat City and then lose against Sheffield United. Height of Spursiness to help Arsenal win a title and then bottle their chance of fourth place. By the way, Aston Villa beating Crystal Palace stops them getting top 4 anyway. So we can all hope that that's the case. Nuances of Fate, responding to the point where he said earlier that Arteta never gives an opportunity to young players, which turned out to be wrong, responds, none of those players have made it into the first team. People point to players like Patino and Aziz, even when they no longer play here, make that make sense. Well, I don't point to those players. I point to Aziz because he got given an opportunity to play a senior debut. They've not been good enough, mate. And if you want to start playing players that aren't good enough, then you're the one that's being a detriment to the quality of the Arsenal first team. You're the one that doesn't want us to take those cup competitions as seriously as we perhaps should. You can't have it all. Jay says, Tom, I hope you haven't forgotten that if we win, you need to sing the Waka Waka song in the Radioactive away shirt. I hope it's not going to be radioactive by the time I wear it. But it certainly does give off that vibe, doesn't it? Tom Sable in the chat, massive friend of the show, says, slap that like button. Like Spurs are going to slap City. I hope you're right, mate. Alison says, we lost the league when we lost to Villa. Don't get your hopes up tonight. I mean, it's funny, isn't it, Alison? We picked up 46 of 51 points. We lost one game in the entirety of 2024, and that's cost us the league. I can't be mad about that. I just can't. I can be disappointed, but I just can't be mad about that because it's insane what we've managed to accomplish in the second half of this season, the run that we've had, winning all but 2 games, one of them being against Villa at home, which sucks, the other one being away to Manchester City, in which we kept a clean sheet. I can't be mad at that. I could be frustrated and disappointed, sure, but I can't be mad at it. We haven't lost the league yet, by the way. I really hate the defeatist attitude of some. Ian says, and surely after 1 to 2 windows, we should be having 6 to 7 players in our combined 11 with City, and then it has to be on to the manager to make us go over the line. It's easy to say, isn't it? It's really easy to say that. I mean, does Saliba get into the City team? Probably. There's Odegaard's. I think alongside De Bruyne, you'd probably play Odegaard together with Rodri in midfield, but it's very close between that. It's the thing about combined 11s, isn't it? Like you'd say Rodri gets in, but Rice doesn't at DM. But Rice is a world-class player. So I think there's a flaw to your plan there, Ryan. I think there's a bit of a flaw there because you could say that Rice, the margins between Rice and Rodri are so fine that maybe one doesn't get in over the other. But then you have to play De Bruyne and you have to play Odegaard. You have to play Bernardo Silva. You have to get Saka in there. You got to get Saliba in there. You know, Ben White has arguably been a bit better than Kyle Walker this season as well. You know, it's been incredibly difficult. On the left-hand side, I think Trossard's been the best left winger of the 2 sides. I think he's been better than Doku. I think he's been better than Grealish this season. You know, so how do you find that rhythm? How do you find that that argument? So I don't think the combined 11 argument works. I think it's a bit flawed. Ben says, if I have this right, all the youth players we have are on loan are better than the ones in the under 21 team. When was the last time we had a successful loan minus Balogun. A successful loan move. I'm thinking back as far as, you could say William Saliba, of course. We got him some successful loan deals and then integrated him into the Arsenal first team. Despite all the controversy, those loan deals have made William Saliba part of the player that he is today. And we've benefited from that. So that's also something that's really worth pointing out. Other players, if you look at the Manchester City team, for instance, right, I'm trying to think of now, is Oscar Bob a player that has been on loan? Did he go on loan for Man City? No, he didn't. Phil Foden. Did Phil Foden spend any time on loan away from Manchester City? No. Did Cole Palmer spend any time away from Manchester City on loan? No. So this idea that you need to loan players out to have a successful youth academy, again, I don't think it's not a simple black and white answer, and for Arsenal, they have had a successful player in William Saliba who's left the club on loan and did exactly what loan deals are meant to do. And yet others like Patino hasn't gone particularly well. He's gone on loan twice to Blackpool and Swansea, and it's not gone well. So suggestions that we should have loaned Reuell Walters and that's going to be the saviour of him, it doesn't line up. It doesn't work. Clive says the issue is the quality of the academy players. We need more quality, and the recruitment strategy will be changing. Arsenal will spend to compete. And you're absolutely right, Clive. There is an intention for Arsenal to go into the market and sign some of the best young players around. We've recently signed Braden Clark from Wolves. Speaking to a Wolves friend of mine the other day, and a person, not a genuine Wolf, I want to make that very clear. And he was saying that you took the best player from our academy in Braden Clark. That the Wolves have had actually some struggles themselves with their academy, but Braden Clark was the standout candidate from their academy by quite some distance. So that is the ambition of Arsenal's, to go out and to add the best young players into the youth side. And Ben says exactly, we need more quality so we can keep more of these talents in the under-21 team and teach them the Arsenal way. I really think that's something that I've stumbled upon today. It's a bit of a penny drop moment for me, I think, this morning. I've not really thought about it, not really talked about it much, but people lean so much on this loan thing, and we should have loaned players, but actually staying in the Arsenal academy, staying in the under-21s actually can be more beneficial because you're in and around the club. You're learning more about the Arsenal system. What's going to prepare you best to play for Arsenal than learning the Arsenal way? Yes, there's sometimes experience is needed on loan, so you can get a bit more physical and bulk up and learn the rigors of senior football more if those opportunities aren't going to be necessarily available to you immediately. But I think examples that we've talked about, like Saka, like Foden, like Oscar Bob, like Cole Palmer, where these players haven't gone on loan and they've just played here and there for the side because they're good enough to, and that's the next key point, is that they are good enough. Just because you give players the same amount of minutes that Palmer and Bob and Foden and Saka got at a young level doesn't guarantee you that they're going to be good enough. They just were good enough. So you have to find the players that are good enough to give the minutes to. Ethan Nuneri, looks to be that player. He made his debut at 15. He's now 16. I think, just turned 17, Saka was making his debut at 17, So the idea that we haven't given Nuneri enough opportunities yet, I think is a bit mad, considering the fact he's now only just turned the age that Saka was when he was making his senior debut for Arsenal. So, again, the scrutiny is a bit too high, I think, from some on that regard. Nuances of Fate says our scouting is terrible. Edu can't even buy decently from the Brazilian league, something that even Wolves have no struggle in doing. Our scouting is terrible. So not only, I think you're having an absolute mare this morning, Faye. Not only have you inaccurately said about the opportunities given to youth players, of which there are 7 senior debuts that have been given by Mikel Arteta, our scouting is terrible. This is the team that have currently, for a second successive season, competed for the Premier League title with a squad that, if you look at it, the players that are in this team, in our best starting 11 and in the several players beyond that, are in a position where we are ultimately competing with a team that there are only 2 or 3 players, maybe 4 at a push. Saka, Saliba were here before Arteta arrived. Havertz signed. Trossard signed. Odegaard signed. Declan Rice signed. Partey signed. White signed. Gabriel signed. Tomiyasu signed. Raya signed. Our scouting is terrible. You heard it here first. Ajmal says, we were expected to win against Villa at the Emirates, but we can't complain when we drop only 4 points in 2024, which includes City away. We can say if buts, but games that could have gone against us too. Ultimately, Arsenal will have been in a position where we'll look at those festive games, I think, is the period of the season where things went away from us. But I can only truly look at one game where I think we played really poorly and didn't get a good result, and that was Fulham. Fulham, for me, was the game where I look at and go, we were bad. There wasn't necessarily any managerial decisions I would have changed. It wasn't necessarily any tactical shifts that I would have made. We just played terribly. There are other games this season where I can make critiques, like second half against Aston Villa. I'll take I got it wrong. Away at Aston Villa, decisions didn't go our way. But Spurs at home, we made a key mistake. West Ham at home, we couldn't finish our dinner and we had some things go our way. Newcastle away, we didn't have the run of the decisions either in that game. You know, there's only really one game I look at and go, not good enough. And that was Fulham. That was the only game I really looked at. Maybe Fulham at home as well, and the 2-2 draw a bit, but still I think we probably should have won that game. But Fulham away is the only really game I have an issue with across the entirety of the season. The rest, I think you can make really solid arguments for all of them as to what we should have done. Trossard scores against Villa in the home game. I think it's a very, very different fixture, you know. So, yeah, that's the only real game I've got an issue with. People say that the Villa home game, like PW here says, wrong team and formation. Arsenal should have been clear by half-time. There was nothing wrong with the starting 11. People talk about how we played Havertz in midfield. Havertz should have scored. Trossard should have scored. Like, we should have been all clear and free by half-time. The way we managed the second half managerially was wrong. I have no arguments there. But I've got no qualms with the starting 11 against Villa because, as I say, we should have been clear by half-time. We should have been comfortably ahead by that point. Edris says West Ham. Again, no. We should have won that game. We had 77 touches in the opposition box. 77. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. Like, we should be absolutely winning that comfortably. I don't have any issues with the West Ham game because we should have won that. Fulham is the only game I look at and go, yeah, we didn't deserve to win that game, and we were poor. So, and we deservedly didn't pick up the points. So even Aston Villa away, I think we were the better team, and so didn't have the run of the green. Newcastle away, you know, I think it was a very competitive game. Both teams very competitive. I don't think we deserved to lose that game at all. And we're very unfortunate to do so. So, yeah, there you go. Club says the issue with the Villa was Bayern was each side of that fixture. And I think maybe we focused too much on those Bayern games, and the Villa game suffered as a result, maybe. And especially, as I say, in the second half as well. Alex says every player has a different development path, and there is no one size fits all. Academy football is about development, not about results. Sorry if you don't like that. Hamza says, hi, Tom, not football related, but just want to say thank you for these shows, as they helped me particularly through the time I was waiting for my A-level results, taking my mind off things. Well, you're very welcome, Hamza. And of course, for those that we are in May and taking their exams, best of luck to you all. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't go well. Just always remember that. I currently don't use the degree that I got when I went to university for. I broke away from my previous career and have jumped into something else I'm really passionate about and working really hard to try and make it work. So best of luck to you. Do your absolute best and do your absolute hardest, but it's not the end of the world. So don't put too much pressure on it because there's always things you can do. You're just going to have to work hard to get them. It's as simple as that. Samson says, hi, Tom. Do you think City will be tripped of all titles or just be given a 10p fine or a transfer ban? I don't know. Absolutely no idea, mate. It depends on the outcome of the results. I have no insight into that story, so no way of me knowing. So Nicholas says there was that run of games where we created 90 chances in 3 games and scored 2 goals. Sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way. I'm very happy with our season. The improvement cannot be questioned. Ajmal says Fulham home was kind of unacceptable for me, not being able to hold on to the lead against 10 men. Again, I think, yeah, you probably look at that game, but there's a big mistake, of course, in the opening minutes. That doesn't happen. The game's very, very different as well. Tizer says, hi, Tom. Do you think Arsenal should follow City's lead in building a training complex for our women's team? We have the biggest attendances and following, and we can't fall behind. The City are gearing up now. Tizer, as far as I'm aware, there is a lot of plans to invest more in the women's side of the game. So, I guess watch this space in that regard. Julian says that last Last minute Havertz disallowed goal against Villa. I mean, it is rightfully disallowed according to the rules. I just think the rules are stupid. PW says, why change winning formula for the Villa game? Not so fluent. I mean, again, you say not so fluent. We were dominant in the first half and we should have been very, very much clear. So I don't necessarily agree with the fluency thing. First half was very fluent. And as I say, we should have been leading comfortably. Wonton Soup says, Patino and Aziz, for example, were touted as the next big things. Only by our fan base, mate. Only by our fan base. Like, we hype players up. It's social media. It's how it works. I fall into that trap. We all do. These players get an opportunity in a pre-season friendly, or they're talked about in articles, hyping them up because they're having a really good pre-season or whatever. That's not the club's fault for these players being really hyped up. That's not, trust me, if you speak to anyone at the club, the last thing they want to do is hype up young players. The last thing they want to do is put more pressure on these young players. That's all on us. That's on media. That's on fan culture. We do that. That's nothing to do with the club. So to say that these guys were hyped up as the next big things, and then we loaned them out, or we made some mistakes, which I don't necessarily think we even did with those two players necessarily. It's just the loaning of those players is always going to be something of a test to see if you're ready, if you've got the mettle. And Charlie Patino, with respect, has not shown that and has not proven that at championship level. And Aziz in particular really did struggle. You know, in the lower divisions, he struggled. If you're struggling at that level, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it at Arsenal. Amberley says, that's mental, saying Zinchenko has cost us 2 titles. Who said that? Who on earth can come up with that argument? That's a joke. Julian says, imagine final game of the season was us against City. What a climax that would be. It would be. It'd be great. 89 all over again. Lee says, Arteta's CV is now up there with the best. It worries me that the Spanish big boys will come calling for him and his backroom staff. We'll head across the Med to there. I think, Lee, that ultimately it's a reality that one day will happen. Arteta will leave. Arteta will move on. And we will have to find a replacement for him. I hope it's not for I hope that's not for a very, very long time. And I hope that in that time that we keep Arteta, that he's very successful and continues to progress us, and we obviously win trophies. So that's, you know, it's very much a hope that he stays, and very much a hope that he succeeds. But if there isn't, as I said yesterday in yesterday's show, there is not a club in the world that would not have Arteta in their shortlist of who they want to be their next manager. Not a single club. Not one. Enigma says, you agree with everything Arteta does. He's terrible at bringing through youth players. 5 years, still nothing. You agree with everything Arteta does. I think if you've watched the show enough, you know that's certainly not true. I think literally 3 minutes ago I said that Arteta got the Aston Villa second half in the home game all wrong. So, but you know, it's not an easy, quick comment to make, is it? If it's true. Steve says, hi, Tom. Is it Obi-Martin or Martin Obi? I believe it's Chido Obi-Martin. I have seen it put both ways, though. So I'm pretty sure it's Chido Obi-Martin, though, Steve. Tom says, championship loans are how to test mental and physical strength. And some players, sadly, do fail quite significantly at that level. Fuad says, what's your thoughts on Partey, Tom? What do we do with him in the summer? If a good bid comes in, I don't think we can necessarily ignore that with a year left on his deal, but I don't think we need to rush into any decisions as well. Martin says, people don't realise that typically only 1 or 2 academy players make it through the first team. Most end up in the lower down or in non-league. That's what I mean, you look at the Man City team, only Oscar Bob, Rico Lewis and Foden have made it under Pep Guardiola into that first team squad. Only those 3. You know, Arteta has been here for 5 years now. We've got Saka, of course, in here. He inherited a Saliba that was bought, you know, at a very, very young age. We've integrated him. Martinelli's been integrated. Smith Rowe was integrated, but injuries, of course, have held him back. I think that Arsenal will be better in the coming years. Now we've established ourselves at this level and that we continue to work with the depth of the squad. I think that we are in a position where we can be more generous with opportunities to young players because we've got the depth of quality to allow for it. But suggesting that we needed to do it earlier, I just think would have been would have undermined us in certain positions and would have made us even less competitive in games where people want us to be more competitive. Nando says you cannot win the title by 1 point or goal difference multiple times and say it isn't material. If guilty, Man City should be stripped of their titles. Sounds draconian, but it's the fact. I mean, if they're found guilty, I hope that they are punished. If they're found guilty, and that's the question, is if they're found guilty, of course. And that investigation continues to go on. Carl says, Tom fans, what do we take from Omari Hutchinson's resurge at Ipswich? I mean, Ipswich have been fantastic. They've been fantastic for players going there on loan. They've coached them brilliantly well. Omari Hutchinson was a player that always had loads of quality, and it was a shame that we sadly we weren't able to keep hold of him. But he was always keen on going back to Chelsea, and from what I've heard, they offered him a very good contract. So it was always going to be tricky to be able to do that. I think we're going to end the show there. Do let us know your thoughts on anything we've talked about today, and your thoughts on the youth academy system, on losing Reuell Walters in the summer. Are you more like me and sympathetic to the idea that if we want to be competitive, it sacrifices opportunities for young players, sadly, at times? Or are you more critical? Do you think that we should have done more? And if so, how would you have gone about that? And also, of course, how are you feeling ahead of tonight's game between Tottenham and Manchester City? We're hoping for a Tottenham result here. We need it. And we hope for it. And if you're an Arsenal fan, you will too. So let's wait and see what happens. But fingers crossed the result tonight goes our way. A man says, what are your thoughts on Arsenal fans supporting Tottenham today? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? It's the best chance Arsenal have got of winning the league. Why wouldn't you want Tottenham to get a result tonight? I think it's more supporting the idea of Man City dropping points than it is supporting the idea of Spurs winning. But yeah, if your hatred of Spurs is greater than your love of Arsenal, that's on you. It's not on us. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. Drop a like on the video. Help us to 1K every single day. And as always, up the Arsenal.